What I thought I'd do is go through, panorama, how to set up, how to do a panorama, uh, show you the equipment that I have that I use, and at the end show a little do an example, a little post processing, and I'll do it post processing both in sort of the popular, programs like Lightroom and On One, and then also show you a sort of a third party program that's sort of a standalone, dedicated panorama creation program and you'll be able to see the feature difference between what you would get in Lightroom, for example, and what you'll get in a real third party application. So without further ado, let me share my screen. Yeah, I think I got to do that first. Share screen. This. Share. Okay. Did you see one big slide?
Yes.
Okay. I have two screens here, and so it's sort of unclear which one's actually showing. So I'm going to bounce around sharing the screen and that. So hang with me. Okay, so obviously panorama. So why would you want to do a panorama? Well, sort of in my mind, there's three reasons. Hold on, let me change this here. First one is basically you've taken a picture and you crop it down so that it happens to use the format, typically 1:2 to 1:4 type of format, because your subject sort of dictates, oh, that looks nice, that looks better, in a what you would think of as a panorama type of format. However, it's just a single image, and when you crop it down like that, you do lose pixels. So on a small display or small print, maybe it would look fine, but you are throwing away pixels when you do that. It just so happens that that crop might look nice on the image that you're working with. The more, I don't know, formal or more reason why you might do a panorama are the other two. Basically, one is you increasing your field of view. So, and I have a slide coming up that talks to field of view, but basically, with a single image, you're limited to the size both horizontally and vertically of that whatever lens you're using, that much of the scene that you can capture. With the panorama, obviously, you have the ability to swing the camera both left to right for a wide row all the way up to 360 degrees and up and down 180 degrees. So you can drastically increase your field of view to increase the picture that you're trying to take. And it also will increase your image pixel size of the image you're creating. So in one dimension, you basically have the pixels size of your sensor in either the horizontal or vertical mode, however you have your camera mounted. But in the other mode where you're collecting multiple other direction where you're collecting multiple images, you drastically are increasing the number of pixels in the scene. I've had images, 50,000 or more pixels along one dimension in the scene. That makes it very nice, especially if you're going to increase, either print or display your image very large. So you benefit by increasing your image pixel size. Okay. And please jump in with questions if you have. So the first panorama that sort of recorded, I guess, was a circular panorama that was done in London. They actually built a building where they displayed a image all the way around the image, the walls, painted not the walls, and you could stand there and basically turn around and look at the panorama. So that's sort of the first one, little historical fact, I guess. Okay, so what is a panorama? So we talked about field of view. So in sort of the far left model one, if you think about keeping your head stationary, your eyes stationary, looking straight ahead, you've got about 120 degrees field of view, both left to right and so horizontal and vertical. And that's sort of what you would capture in a single image as well in a camera. The middle one, model 2, is now what if you keep your head, your eyes facing forward, keep your head straight, don't move up and down, but you sort of turn around or you spin your head around or you turn around in a circle. So you've increased your field of view for 360 degrees horizontally. You still have the 120 degrees vertically. Okay, and then sort of the third mode or third way to capture a panorama would be you can turn 360 degrees as in model 2, but you can also move your head up and down. You can look up, look down 180 degrees. So basically you're capturing a full 180, 360 by 180 degree panorama. And we can do that with the camera by rotating the camera either just horizontally, taking a single row of images, or you can rotate the camera, then move it up or move it down, tilt it up or tilt it down, and do another collection. And now you're collecting all the way 180 to 360, depending on how many rows you might want to take. So basically, there's two types of panoramas that are mentioned in the literature. I don't really like the names, but they're just called simple panorama and advanced panorama. And so what's the difference? Why do you need to worry about this? What's the simple, what's advanced? Well, the reason the reason there's a difference is a thing called parallax, where, I mean, everybody's probably, you're a photographer, you're familiar with parallax, but basically it means, that the foreground may move differently in relationship to the background as you move your head, or in our case, as you move the camera. So, if you held your thumb out, arm's length in front of your face and move your head, which is like moving the camera, your thumb moves separately or not in relationship to the background. So if you move your head one way, you'll see a different part of the background behind your thumb. You move your head the other way, and you'll see a different part of the background behind your thumb. So with a simple panorama, you really don't have to worry about parallax. And I'll explain why here in a minute. The advanced panorama is where, a lot of people get, oh, you need all this fancy equipment. And that's where you start to talk about the advanced panorama, where you have to start to think about, how do I get around the issue of parallax? So basically, a simple panorama is where you're seeing all the significant parts of the scene are basically at infinity, and there's no foreground object. So you really don't have to worry about the issue of the foreground moving different than the background. So, like the scene here, the wall of the Grand Canyon is way off in the distance. and any kind of trees or anything that are, along the ledges there, you don't have to worry about because they're so far away that any kind of movement is really insignificant and it's not going to affect the image at all. So what's nice about that is you can, traditionally you can have your camera on a tripod, or you can just handhold it and just take multiple images. And we'll talk about that more, but you can just sort of swing the camera left to right and take multiple overlapping images and then process them, and you'll get a very nice looking panorama.
Doesn't work.
And the programs that are available to do the stitching all handle that very easily. And even what should I say? Even the less sophisticated ones can easily stitch together simple panoramas. So, I mean, this is the best case. You're out, and you want to, oh, I got this real wide field of view. Everything's sort of in a mountain scene or sort of distance away. You just, take a collection of images. It's easy. You don't need any special equipment. It's a lot of fun to do. And you just stitch them together in post-processing. So, so that's a simple way to do it. The advanced panorama is sort of where you do have something significant in the foreground. So the foreground objects obviously are not at infinity. So there will be the shift between them due to parallax. You also have an issue about multiple rows. With a simple panorama, if you swing camera left to right in a single row, you've collected a series of images that are easily stitched together, no parallax. If you do that by hand holding it, tilting the camera up and take a row, you'll get a distortion because sort of the lens is there's a thing called the no parallax point that we're going to get to that sort of centers the lens in a way that you get a nice uniform level picture. And if you tilt it up and move it left to right or right to left, and you're not over that no parallax point, you get sort of the traditional mustache or grin or frown type of image because the camera is rotating through an arc as you go left to right, as you swing it back and forth. Using the equipment I'm going to show you here in a minute, you can do these multiple row collections and still maintain a nice horizontal straight image. So as I say, to do this requires positioning the lens at a point that's called the no parallax point. And all lenses obviously have it. Some people in the past have referred to that as the nodal point of the lens, and that's actually incorrect. It's not the nodal point of the lens. And it's sort of, if you think about looking in the end, or I should say, looking in the front of your lens, and you see the aperture inside your lens, that's the no parallax point. And it moves based on what focal length lens you're using. So in order to maintain that position over the center part of your tripod, meaning the central, rotation point of your tripod, requires some special equipment. And that's called a panoramic head. And I'll show you that here in another minute or two. Okay. So, okay, so talked about this no parallax point. What does this really mean? So on the left, you'll see a picture of a tripod with a camera mounted on it, on end, maybe using like an L bracket. So the body of the camera is over the rotation point of the tripod, and the lens is sticking out in front of that. And there's a dot there that shows you that somewhere within inside of that lens, basically where the aperture is where the no parallax point is. So if you swing that, as you see, I mean, if you swing that camera, rotate that camera left to right or right to left, you'll see that dot will move, will not sort of stay stationary over the center of your tripod, which is where you want it to be. Okay. Whereas on the right side, you can see there's some hardware. There's this panorama mount. I guess that's not a question. Somebody's mic on? Hello? Okay, well, I'll keep going. So using this panorama mount, you can position the no parallax point over the central rotation point of your tripod, so that when you rotate the camera or you tilt it, that point always stays over the central rotation point of your tripod. And that will give you the nice,
That's
I had 1.5, and those are big.
it's probably about an hour working out, an hour driving. That's what it takes. So I'm tired, so I won't. I'll do what I need to do.
is that a question? I can't tell.
It's got to be Jerry Jorgensen because everybody else I see here is muted. There you go. He's off now.
Okay, all right. Okay, so I'll keep going. All right. So this is the equipment that you need to do an advanced panorama. And again, I stress the fact that you don't need this if you don't have something really significant in the foreground. And I'll say it now, I'll say it later. The post-processing software is so good now that the need for this equipment is getting less and less. I mean, obviously, if you have something really significant in the foreground, it could, it may be mandatory, but you almost don't need it unless you're doing something, sort of out of the ordinary. But okay, so let me walk through the equipment on the slide, and I'll switch back and show you what my equipment, so you can actually see it and how it works. So you have your tripod. You want to make sure your tripod is level, so that as you move the head and everything around, it's always in the same plane. So you need to make sure that your tripod legs are level. Well, it's always a pain to try to level your tripod legs. So there is a mechanism that you can buy. It's a leveling mechanism that sits on the top of the tripod. So it screws onto the top of the tripod. And you can loosen that, and it will rotate around so that there's a bubble level, and you level that. So now the platform that's on the top of your tripod, the platform that you're going to put your ball head or whatever head you use and all this stuff on top of, is now level. All right, so you don't have to actually go and play with your tripod legs and try to get your tripod level. There is a leveling mechanism that you can use. It is okay, and here it is. So here's a spirit level, bubble level that will tell you when it's level. Okay, above that is where you would put your ball head or your fluid head or whatever type of head that you typically use on your tripod, so that you can then attach your camera or your panorama head to that. So that sits on top of the leveling mechanism. And then there is the actual panorama head itself, and it's made up of basically 3 pieces. There's a arm that attaches to your ball head or your fluid head, whatever you use. So that's this one. And that allows you to move the camera from right to left to center the lens over the tripod from left to right. Okay. So because you want to have the center of your lens as it's facing out over the center of your tripod. Then there's an arm on the left here that a third arm attaches to, and that one can move both forward and backward and also tilt up and down. So it moves forward and backwards because there you need to put that no parallax point over the center of the tripod. So you can move the camera back and forth until that point is also over the center of the tripod. So now you have the camera centered both left to right and also front to back. So that no parallax point is centered over your tripod. And this upper arm, you can see it's tilted, so there's a tilting mechanism so that you can both rotate your camera 360 degrees horizontally, and then you can also tilt it up and down to collect multiple rows. Okay, so let me stop sharing for a second and show you. Let's see. I'll show you my. Oops. Let me do this. Okay, so here is my tripod. Let me see if I need another light. All right. That help? No, that's too much. That's probably too much light, right? Okay, so let me just bring this in. So here's a tripod. Right here, these two knobs on the side are the to loosen it is the leveling head or adapter. So you can see I can now level this without having to play with the legs on my tripod. And what I can do is I can move my head sort of out of the way here for a minute, and I can look at my level here. It's not dark, so I can't see it, but there we go, something like that. It's close enough. All right, so now this base right here is level to the floor or the ground. And I have, so on top of that is your head. In this case, I have a fluid, it's called a fluid head. You might be using a ball head. Really doesn't really matter. Fluid heads are nice because if you loosen up the head and rotate it, it always stays level. Okay, so you're always level to the ground. And you can put stuff on here like a big lens and you can adjust it and it'll stay in position, whatever. Okay, anyway, so here's where your ball header and everything would go. And then this is the panorama head. Okay, so it clips in an Arca Swiss plate, so it just comes out. Okay, it looks like this, and I can just pop it into the Arca Swiss plate. There's lines on the side, so I can line it up to the 0 mark here. So I'm over the center. Okay. And I said this plate here, so your camera will go on here eventually. So this plate here moves back and forth. I can loosen this up. I'm sorry, loosen this up, move this back and forth. Just get the camera lens centered, and then your camera will mount up here, and this slides back and forth, so I can move it this way, front to back, to get the no parallax point over the center, and I can also loosen this up and rotate it up and down. So I take my camera here. So as you can see, the lens is centered this way. I can also, as I mentioned, I can loosen the right knob here. Loosen this knob, and I can move it, back and forth this way. Okay, and I can loosen this up, and I can move the camera front to back. So you have all these adjustments. Now, how do you know where to set it? There's a million videos on YouTube of how to find the no parallax point for your lens. And it is dependent on the focal length of the lens. What happens is that, when you're moving your camera back and forth like this, as I've mentioned, the foreground objects move different than the background object, right? You would like it to be so that this moves back and forth. If this was a tree and something else in the background, they're going to go like this until you're over the no parallax point, and then the whole thing rotates together like that. So what you do is you go out ahead of time, and you can find two things distance apart, foreground and background, move your camera back and forth like this, and you move your camera back and forth until those objects are stationary, okay? And there's a scale on here, and you write down the number, and you say, all right, when I'm at 35 millimeters, I'm at 150 millimeters. And you write that down, and you keep it with you on your phone or whatever. So now when you come back a month later, you want to set this up, you set it to 35 millimeters, put this at 150, and you're set to go. So now you know where that is. As I said, there's a lot of videos online to show you how to do that. Okay, so you can see that this is the no parallax point. As I rotate the camera, it is stationary. And loosen this up. So here's the point. If I rotate it up and down, it's also stationary. Okay, so that's what you want, so that those foreground and background objects are stationary to each other. So, questions about that? Okay, let me go back to sharing. Okay. All right. So there are some basic rules of thumb that you have when you're taking a sequence of images for a panorama. First one is you set your exposure and your shutter speed and ISO. You set everything in the manual, because you don't want your exposure changing as you're rotating your camera, taking multiple images, especially if they have the sky, because and you also this would take off your circular polarizer, because if you think about it, you think about a panorama picture, all the trees and everything's all stitched together, and it looks nice. But you also have like the sky, and the sky can change. It could be bright in one part of the sky, it could be darker in another part of the sky. And you don't want to have your exposure changing while you're collecting your images, because when the program stitches your pictures together, it has to correct and blend your sky together, for example, so that it looks like a nice uniform single picture. If you have, for example, your circular polarizer on, you could end up literally with bands in your final image at different exposures where the different images were or are. And so in order to help the program with blending tonally the images together, you want to make sure your exposure is not changing. The other thing is you want to pick a focus point and depth of field. Because as you rotate the camera, the thing you're interested in may be going in and out of focus, right? If it's a long, mountain scene far away, it's not going to be an issue. But as you get closer and you have to start worrying about depth of field, you want to make sure you test all that ahead of time. So you swing your camera back and forth, looking through the camera, and looking at the things of interest and estimating what's the best focus and depth of field settings for the camera, and then leave it so that it's the best compromise, if you will, as you take all these images. You want to take more field of view than you need. As the program stitches all these images together, it may not be able to use one for some reason. It's not overlapped enough, or if tonal difference is too much, or whatever. And depending how good your setup is, or if you're hand holding, for example, if you're moving the camera in between shots, you're going to get an unevenness in your final images because they're all being stitched together. You have to crop, right? You have to crop top and bottom, or off left and right, to make a nice rectangular image. So you want to have more field of view, more pixels than you need in your final image, so that you have room to crop it nice and square. Some of the new programs actually will help fill in some of that for you, but it's best to take more image than you need. You want to overlap images somewhere between 25 to 60%, because again, these programs look for common points, and I'll show you this later. They look for common points in the multiple images, adjacent images, and that's how they know how they stitch together. So you have to have points in your image that are common to multiple images. So basically what I do is I'll have my rule of thirds grid in the viewfinder, and I'll find an object that's like under the right-hand vertical line, and I'll rotate the camera until that object's under the left-hand vertical line, and then I take a picture. So so that's probably about 30% or so. So if the scene has a lot of details in it, you can get away with less overlap. If there's not a lot of detail and common points are few and far between, you want to have more overlap between your images. Another rule of thumb is the orientation of your camera when you mount it on your tripod. So if you're doing a horizontal panorama, you want the camera in portrait mode, because there's more pixels vertically then. Okay, so you're optimizing the number of pixels in the vertical dimension while you take multiple images horizontally, and vice versa. If you're taking a vertical panorama, so the camera is going to sweep up and down, you want it in landscape mode, because you want to get as many pixels horizontally as you can, and your sensor is wider that way when you're doing a vertical panorama. So it's sort of you have to think about that, but it is important to do that so that you maximize the number of pixels that you're collecting. And I said already that there are a lot of videos that you can see to find the no parallax point.
Jeff, one question back, if you could back up there. You didn't address, or if you did, I missed it, I'm sorry, but white balance, and I've been bitten by that before. So,
Yes.
I shift white balance to manual, and pick whatever number I'm picking, because I've had them where I've shot and the white balance changed over the pano. The other question I have for you here is about your optimum focus point. You're refocusing with each one of your shots, or no?
No, I don't.
Okay. So are you in manual focus?
Yes, I always had a manual focus.
Okay, got it.
And I use, back button focusing anyway, but
Right, right.
yeah, but I do not focus in between because again, I mean, that could change the focus of two common points. Right,
Right.
which I don't think you want to do. But you're right. So the white balance, yeah, I mean, anything that's going to affect the shutter speed or the shutter exposure, uh, you want to minimize. Because you're right, you get streaks and bands or whatever as the exposure changes, or color shifts. You can get color shifts. Yeah.
Yeah.
Yep.
A lot of higher end point and shoot cameras have a panoramic mode on the mode dial.
Yep.
Where you set it to that, you push the button and just kind of swing the camera across.
Yep.
Is sorry, I let go of the space bar. Is it possible to get decent results that way?
Well, I've done that with my iPhone, and yes, you get a nice looking image. Yeah, it's basically doing a lot of I don't think it's using the movie mode, but it's collecting images and then it's stitching it all together in camera. So it is. I have collected a panorama. Sometimes I'll do that before I use my Nikon. I'll take a panorama with my iPhone, look at it, and say, "Yeah, that's sort of what I want," and then shoot it with my Nikon, mainly because of the pixels. You're not going to blow up a iPhone panorama to anything large. So, but it does do a pretty nice job.
Okay, I've never tried it with my iPhone. I was looking more at my Sony RX100 or my
Right.
Celux rather.
Okay. Uh, yeah. I mean, the only one camera I have that has that type of feature is my iPhone. Okay, so post-processing. So there are panorama stitching software in sort of the popular, uh, you know, um, programs, Lightroom on one, Luminar, Photoshop. They all have different techniques in how they, uh, any kind of pre-processing that you might need. I know at one time, I haven't used Photoshop in a long time to do this, but at one time you sort of had to manually merge and align the images before you could then stitch them, things like that. I don't know if they've improved that or not, but Lightroom and On1, Luminar are all pretty much, you tell it what images you want, and I'm going to give you a demonstration here in a minute. The standalone software, there's a few of them as well. PT GUI is sort of the most popular one, and I'll give you a little demonstration of that one as well. I think that's next. Yep. So let me stop the share. Bear with me here for a minute. Go here, get rid of this. Bring up this. Okay, let's share the screen. Okay, so if you see me, you should be seeing my, this is on one photo raw. Okay, is this what you see? Hello?
Yes, yeah, we see on photo raw.
Okay, all right. All right, so this is the panorama. This is the Grand Tetons. I had this in one of the our contests or our things last year, I believe. So here's the panorama. That's the end result, and here are the individual images. There's 17 of them, and when I collect the images, what I do is I take a picture of my hand before I start. Take my 17 pictures and take another picture of my hand. So when I'm loading all these pictures on the computer and I start looking for my panoramas, I can look and I know that the images between my hands here are the ones for the panorama. Okay, so this is a horizontal panorama. Okay, so you can see I'm in portrait mode. So I'm trying to optimize the number of pixels in this dimension. Okay, if you did it the other way, if you just did it in horizontal landscape mode, you'd have, more and more pixels this way, plus the pictures you're taking, but you'd have a really skinny, or how do I say it, short, you would lose this dimension. Okay. Okay, so here are my images. I can select them. I've got them selected, and I go up. I don't remember where it is now. I'm talking here. I think on the phone. Let's see. What am I doing here? Here, create panorama. Okay, so create a panorama. So you can sort of see how this one works. It's loading the images. How much time do you have? Now, as this is going, so I do minimum pre-processing to the images. Uh, if I may do some noise reduction or some things like that. But I do minimum because I do most of the tonal stuff. Most everything else I do in post-processing. So after I create the panorama, I'll go in like it's a single image and do things to it. But I don't really do a whole lot of pre-processing. I mean, you would go into a single image, that's representative, do whatever you want to it, save the settings, and then apply those settings to all the other images, and then put them into the software to create the panorama. So it's still loading images. Almost done. Okay, it's estimating the transform. So that means it's, okay, so now it's composing, so it's stitching them together. That's- Yep, there we go. All right, so it's cropping it down. What it thinks a good crop is. Okay, put it over here. You don't see it, right? Okay, do you see it now?
Yes.
Okay. All right, so this is what the output of on one. Used all 17 images. It didn't do that before. Okay, so the type of crop, though, or the type of projection it used was auto. I'm not really sure what auto is. Let's pick spherical and see. That should change. No. All right. Well, okay. So as you can see, it's not really a horizontal horizon here, which it should be. So I'm going to show you this one. I'll show you Lightroom. I'll show you the PT GUI. On ones is probably the worst. You have really nothing that you can really do to it. Okay. So, I mean, what you see is sort of what you get out of on one. But, I use on one for all my other post-processing. I don't use it obviously for this, but you get an idea of what it would do. So let's go to the Lightroom. Let me see. Okay. If I drag that over here. Are you seeing Lightroom?
Yes,
Oh, okay. Wasn't sure if I had to stop the share or not. Okay, so here's a Lightroom, same 17 images. Okay, so there I imported them, and I should say these are NEF, so they're raw images. They're all about 53 megabyte size images. Okay, 17 of them, brought them into my Lightroom catalog, and let's do this in Lightroom. So somewhere here. No, it's under photo. Yes, photo merge.
you need to select them all first, or,
I did. They are. I did that
okay,
earlier. Yes, so normally you would select them all and then, but when I preloaded the programs, I selected the images.
Okay.
So this is now just like with on one, it's creating the panorama. It's already loaded the images. It's creating them. It gives you a projection, cylindrical, spherical, and perspective. So what are these projections? Well, you got to think about, you're taking these images and you need to display them on a two-dimensional surface, right? It's like taking a globe and, how do I take a globe and project that onto a map to create a map in 2 dimensions? You're sort of doing the same thing here. You've got these images either in a single row or multiple rows, and you're trying to project those. And there's these different mathematical projections that are available. So here it is out of Lightroom. It's a spherical. Here's a preview for cylindrical. So you can play around with these different, unable to do that one. Okay. You can fill the edges here. So if I click on this, it'll go in and try to fill in the other stuff, which is pretty neat. You can change the boundary warping a little bit. So you can see the horizon is pretty nice, pretty level in this one. So Lightroom has more features than on one. Basically, how the picture is going to look. Okay, there's no capability to sort of pre-edit or to go in and say, well, what if my left-hand side doesn't look right, or the middle doesn't look right, or something's not right. It's really, you can play with the output, and that's about it. Okay, so after you get it the way you want it to look, and I didn't mention this on one, you would click on merge or save or whatever, and it would go off and create the final panorama. This is sort of a preview. You click on merge, and it goes through the same process you just saw, creating the panorama with the settings that you selected on the right-hand side. Okay. I know I'm running out of time here, so let me just show you the last one. Get rid of it. Let's close it. Okay, so let me bring up this one. That. Okay, so here's PT GUI. It is a dedicated program for doing this. So you can load the image. So it's much more tool oriented. All right, so sort of it gives you these. You can have it describe various steps for like you can sort of set up macro things like for here is load images, set up the panorama and then create the panorama, you'll see there's these various editing modes, etc. So if I bring up images, so let me go into this. Okay. Well, here maybe. Well, okay, let me do this. Here's my images. Let's see if I can just drag them in. Yeah, okay. Okay, so it's reading in the various images. Again, these are 50 megabyte images. Okay, so there they all are. I can click on a line and it'll go through and align all the images, and there you go. There's the preview. So you can have it show you, these red lines are where it took different things out of different images. There's actually an editor here. Oops. Hold on. Too many screens here. Too many screens. How do I get out of here? Let me stop sharing for a second. Clean up some of this stuff. Get rid of some of this and get it down where I can look at it. There we go. Okay, so let me you still there?
We're here. Yep.
Let me
Just
get
seeing
back
you.
to.
Yeah.
Let me find my Zoom window. Here we go. Too many windows. Share. Okay. All right. So there is a thing called the editor here, where it shows me what parts of the images were used. I can stretch things here, like fit the panorama, so I can do things to having it fit horizontal and vertically. I can move it around. Let's see here, what else did to show? Projections. So here's projections. So if you remember, on one had one, Lightroom had three. Well, here's a whole list of different projections. Rectilinear. So if you had like a scene with a lot of straight lines, you might want to use that one. It's which one's that? Equal triangular. There's fisheye, full frame fisheye, Mercator. If you're familiar with mapping, the Mercator rectilinear. So this is in that. So anyway, so there's just these different projections. Much more powerful depending on what's in the scene. One might be better than another. And then finally, let me show you this control points. Let's see here. There you go. Okay, so here are the images across the top, and it's a split. You've got 1 to 17 on one side, 1 to 17 on the other. So it's taking, like, for this example, image 1 on the left, image 2 on the right. And all these are the control points that it found to match up. So this is the part of the scene that's overlapping. And like, here's 24 here, 24 here. you can go in and zoom in. And if you wanted to move it a little bit, you could pick it up and move it. So you have a lot of control over the control points that it's using to warp and stitch these things together. And you can just move, move along, go to, image 2 there, image 3 here. So here's the overlap and here's points that it picked. So as you can see, I mean, it's a very powerful and very fast program. But unfortunately, it's also an expensive program. So it is a few $100s uh, to purchase if you want to own it outright. So anyway, so that's Panorama. Probably more than you ever wanted to know about panoramas. So any questions? No. All right.
That's a great presentation, Jeff. I shoot a ton of panoramas. I love shooting panoramas, and I would say that you were talking about when you're going a horizontal panorama, shooting maximizing your pixels by shooting in portrait mode. Um, I don't like shooting in portrait mode with my camera, just the way it's designed. So I'll take multiple horizontal rows,
Mhm.
and just catch a little bit on the bottom, of the sky, like 5 or 6 or 7 images, and then drop down a row, and then drop down another row and another row, which then gives me, the vertical pixels in addition to the horizontal pixel. Now I got a ton more photos I got to merge all together and everything, and if the clouds are moving fast or something like that, then that's always a challenge. But
Do you use a panorama head to do that, or you just hand hold it?
no, virtually all my panoramas are all handheld, and my camera's pretty much all manual anyway, so that part's all easy. But and it's always when I'm home reviewing hundreds and hundreds of photos that I say, I should take a picture of my hand before I start and a picture at the end before I start.
Yeah,
I always forget that, and
yeah, yeah.
so
Yeah,
thank you for bringing that up again.
the one, and I probably should have put it on one of the slides. The only down, hand holding it and going, all across like that, or even with multiple rows is easy, fun to do until you miss an overlap.
Yeah.
And then the program blows up because you're missing a frame in the middle, or you're missing a strip in the middle of your panorama because, I went too far and I didn't overlap.
Yeah, you have got to pay attention, no question about it. And I used to start out with, the minimum amount of overlap people said you needed, and over time I've gotten to the point where it's about 50-50 for me. I figure the more is better for the program.
Yeah.
And the real issue I have is just staying level. I'll tend to go down, or go
Right.
up, and then,
Right.
and so if you have more images, like you said, then you've got a lot to work with your framing in post-processing to, transform it, or however you got to do it to get it to level. So.
Anything else? No? Okay. Back over to you.